Hey everybody, what I want to do today was to show you how I originally started weathering. It was years and years ago, probably back in the late 80s, and I used to build a lot of 125th scale models and enter them in contests. And so I developed my own style of weathering because there really wasn't any information out there on anything. But one of the things I did is I would take a razor like this, and I would go out and I would lay under my truck and I would scrape the rust and dirt and stuff off of the frame rails under the truck. I mean, because that's the real stuff. And so what you end up with, if you look there real close, you see the powder? That's what it is. It's just powder. And it's the real McCoy, if you can see that. And what I would do with that is, well, wait, let me show you or tell you what I did for prep first. First, what I do is I would spray the whole model body, whatever I was going to weather, with like red primer paint. Let that dry, and then I would take go out and get me some dirt, kind of fine dirt, and then you take that dirt and you put it in a flour sifter. And I'll try to insert a picture of that in this video. They're pretty cheap. But then you sift your dirt, and it all comes out really, really, really fine, that's what you want. And I use these little tins, these little mini loaf pans, and like little mini pie pans and stuff. They're cheap enough, but I use them for decals, for mixing paint, for mixing up my dirt mix. And this is all the way I used to do it. And once you get that dirt sifted down real fine, put it in one of these or a bowl, whatever you want. And you add a little bit of water to it, and then take, some people call it PVA glue, but just take some Elmer's white glue and you mix it in there, and you mix until you got a consistent mix, but kind of not real runny, but a little bit thick, so it just doesn't run everywhere. But you mix all that up, and then what I did is I actually brushed on the mix all over the whole body of the plastic car, and I'd let that dry. And once that dried, you have some, you can't see the glue, and you have some serious texture on there that'll take any, anything you want to put on there. And so once that is done, you can, I also would make washes with this. This is really cheap, like water-based acrylic paint that you can get even at Walmart, hobby stores, whatever. So you can see the different colors. Well, you take these, you get different colors. You take black, take white, take gray, whatever. You mix them up a little bit with a little bit of water, and make them. You want to make them runny, but you can get make a good wash, about any color of wash that you want to make. And so this is pretty inexpensive also. And you make your wash, and what I did is I would put the wash on it where I wanted it. And sometimes it would run down in some areas, like on running boards or the bed of the pickup and stuff, cracks and crevices, and it would pool a little bit. Well, if you let that dry in there, if you've ever seen a mud puddle or water on a surface where it has pooled, it always leaves quite a bit of dirt and material, where it has settled and is pooled. Well, this paint will do the same thing. And once I do that, what I'll do is I'll take a can of clear matte, clear coat, and spray it over to seal all that stuff. And then once I've done that, I take a brush, and something that's pretty inexpensive to use. You can take one of those acid brushes and cut the bristles down to where they're pretty short, and then you use that, and you get a bunch of this your scrapings on that, and you actually brush it onto the model. I mean, you have a rough surface now. and you brush it on in places. And if you want, there are places where, anywhere that has rust on it, like old farm equipment and stuff, some of it has really bright orange rust. Anywhere that's there, you take a razor and scrape that off. Basically, then you got a powder, so you can get different colors of rust. This just happens to be fairly dark. And so what you do is you start brushing that on in places that you want it. And once you've pretty well covered it where you want it covered, you give it another shot of matte clear coat. And it's always gonna blow off and wash off some of it, but some will stay, it'll stick. And it's kind of a tedious process, but you just keep doing that over and over. And another thing I use is pastel chalks. Now these are oil pastels. I wouldn't recommend using them for this, but these work okay for some things because you can kind of rub them on and smear them around because they're oil based. Like there, see, there's a good earth tone color right there. And you put it on and you can wipe it off, you can smear it around, but just remember that they are oil based. So you're going to have some of that kind of residue wherever you do it. But I recommend doing, and I couldn't find them, I don't know where they're at the moment, straight up pastel chalks, non-oil. And what you do, you can do the same thing you did with your rust. You scrape it off into a powder, and then you brush it on with that brush. And like I say, different colors. You can even mix the powders up and different colors and put that where you want. Each time you do a layer of this, you want to shoot it with a light coat of the gloss coat. Not gloss coat, but the clear coat. Matte. You know, the flat. So it'll seal it on, and then you can put another layer on. And it does take a while, especially if you're doing a 1/25th scale. I don't have any pictures of the ones I used to did. I don't even have the models that I did because I made big dioramas, and I mean like big, to enter them in contests, and I gave them all to my son because I just didn't have room for him anymore. He likes models, so I gave them to him to play with. And pardon my mess around here. I just bought this house. It's 3-bedroom. This bedroom is a man cave, hobby room, whatever you want to call it. So it's getting it set up. Over here on the floor is my workbench that the instructions suck. So it's a real trial and error putting it together. And it's kind of difficult for me to get up and down on the floor to put this thing together. So it goes together about 1 or 2 bolts a day. And I get tired of it and I go do something else. But I've got a credenza and a storage cabinet and 4 chairs that all need to be put together still in the rest of the house. So, and then I've got 1,000 boxes that still aren't unpacked yet. So I'm knee deep in a mess. But I still take time to hobby because, you know, I gotta free my brain, if you know what I mean. So that's how you would do that type of weathering. That's how I learned how to do it. I mean, we're talking back in the 80s. And I just thought this up. There wasn't really any information on how to do this. I just went out and I just looked really close at things that were, you know, that were weathered, rusty, dirty, and just tried to duplicate that. And so, and part of duplicating it was usually the actual real stuff. Now, another part of weathering is if you want some paint to show through. Back then, now you can use, they have like liquid mask and stuff, but back then that wasn't available. And so what I used is I bought rubber cement, and you put that before you do all your weathering and painting over it. You put that on. Like say on a section on the fender, I wanted the green paint to show through some. And so, but I didn't want to paint the whole car green. So I just paint a spot of green on the fender, let it dry, put rubber cement on it, a glob, let that dry. And then I would paint and weather over the top of it. And then when I was all done, you take and you pick that glob of that rubber cement off, and there you go. Under it was your green paint, and a lot of the time it would pull off some of the weathering or whatever with it, so it looks like it was peeled. So, and then you could take a brush with some of your rust or your pastels or whatever, and then run a little stream down, so it looks like the rust was like bleeding down in the in the rest of the below the rust point down onto the rest of the paint or whatever. And it's a real trial and error, but this is a pretty inexpensive way to do weathering. It's not as quick and simple as using all of these paints here right now. I guess I've gotten kind of lazy, and now I use more of the ready-made stuff now that's available instead of going about it the old-fashioned way, because now, when you do just little cars, it seems like an awful lot of work to go to just to do one little car. And but be advised, whatever mud mix that you use, if whatever you don't use, it will harden up in your little pan. So after you're all done, you might want to, wash it out or whatever. But by the time you get done, my style was all involved around layers. Chalk a layer, clear coat it. Chalk a layer, clear coat it. And the thing about it is you can't make mistakes on that. It's, if you don't like it, you chalk over it. So a lot of the times it looks, even better than if you had planned it. So anyway, that's how I used to do it before all this other stuff became available. So all this other stuff just makes it so much easier for me now. I can, it doesn't take me, it took me almost a year to build a diorama for a contest in Idaho. It was Model Championships. And I entered it quite a bit, and I quit building them and stuff. It was crazy. After I had won all the prestigious awards, at some point I won them at least once, every one of them. And then I finally won Best of Show, #1. And after that, I never built any more models. I don't know. I just like, hey, great, man. I got a nice plaque trophy to put on the wall, and it's, and then I don't know, it didn't seem like there was any goals to shoot for anymore. So, kind of bummed some other people out too, because they loved working at my stuff. But yeah, those dioramas I even had, right down to scratch built miniature beer cans, stuff like that. So they were pretty detailed. It took a while to do them, but they had rusted trucks in them, and like mine shacks and outhouses and carved wood and axes and you name it. If it was something you'd find in an old miner shack or something in the mountains, I made it. I used to live in the mountains, and I've seen old miner shacks. I've been around that stuff, so I know what needed to be there. So anyway, that was my technique. It's still just as efficient today as it was 30 years ago. And that's about when I developed it. But like I say, I don't do it on my die cast because they're so small, and it's just so much easier and quicker to use the stuff. I still use these washes. I still make my little washes there. And because like I say, this stuff is 50 cents to $1 a bottle. And I buy a lot of earth tones, and I mix them up and buy you some reds and some yellows and stuff and some orange and black also. And because you'd be amazed at what you can come up with if you mix those. Like I say, mix them up. And I use these tins for put water in, decals, mixing up my mud mix, scraping rust down into it. You can even use it to, mix my paints. They're so cheap. And if you want, you can reuse them over and over and over again. Just rinse them out. And so I guess that pretty well covers that technique. It's something that just about anybody could use because it's pretty inexpensive, and because this stuff is not. This is was it Vallejo, Tamayo, whatever. It was the rust and weathering chipping effects little kit. It's 25 bucks. Okay, now not everybody is in a position to be able to buy that kind of stuff. And so I finally just bought some. I just wanted to try to make my modeling a little bit easier. And but there are inexpensive ways to model your little cars. And this is the way that I taught myself to do it. I didn't get this from anybody because there wasn't any information out there. And really think about it. I don't even think YouTube existed in the 80s, did it? Late 80s? You know, did anything exist in the late 80s? So there's a technique. If you have any questions, you know what to do. I hope you enjoyed this. Be nice if everybody could subscribe, hit the bell. I'm thinking about doing more of these, you know, but I want to share things that that I know that might not be out there in cyberspace like this. I've never really seen anybody else do this kind of technique that I did back in the day. But hey, try it sometime. See what you think. Go buy you some of those chalks. Go scrape you off some rust. Just be careful with the razor. Make sure you wear eye protection. You're going to land in your truck and scrape off. You know, scrape it off. You don't want to get this stuff in your eyes and make you miserable for a better part of a day. So anyway, if there's anything else, anything I missed, you know, just ask me. I try to pay attention to who's commenting and what's going on. So I hope you all have a great day. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if you want me to do more of this kind of stuff. I actually droned on longer than I wanted to, but I hope it was informative. And maybe next time I'll have my work area in a lot better shape. But I've got right over there, you can see my 3D printer, my Cricut cutter, and the old kitchen island I put in here, so work better in here. And I've got a real nice L-shaped desk right here, and I got a lot of bare wall space to put shelves and pictures and stuff. So if you want to send me an 8x10 of yourself, go right ahead and do it. And I'm not putting it on my wall. I'm just kidding. All right, so I hope y'all enjoyed, everybody. Come back, check back, try this out. Let me know how it works for you. And because it worked great for me. I mean, it won me some nice awards that someday you'll see hanging on the walls in here. So cars drive by and I look out the window, see who's driving by my house. So anyway, enjoy, and we will talk to you all soon.